There were many topics that we dealt with during these 2 days, starting of course, with the situation in the Middle East. There is convergence of views in the G7, as you also saw from the joint statement that came out yesterday by the G7 leaders on the Middle East situation. We are all obviously committed to peace and stability in the Middle East. We are aware that the main source of instability in the region has been Iran itself. We all agree that there can't be Iran getting a nuclear weapon. Clearly, in the face of a threat that is real, you have also seen the latest IAEA reports. We agree that Israel has the right to defend itself. But the goal we're all working toward is to get to negotiations that will really prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear power. You know that negotiations had already been attempted by the US. You know that Italy knows this well because we also hosted 2 rounds of these negotiations. There had been no record of this willingness. We will see if with what is happening, clearly the scenario will change after that broadening, let's say to the regional spectrum. I believe that this is the right time by properly pushing for a ceasefire in Gaza is a goal on which I have been working a lot in these days, is a goal on which I have found convergence in reference to a ceasefire in Gaza is contained in the leader's statement, and I am satisfied with this result. We of course talked about Ukraine. We talked about it last night at dinner. We talked about it this morning with President Zelensky, to whom, of course, I brought the solidarity of the Italian people for the brutal attacks that we saw again last night. I reflect with you on the fact that every time you try to take a few steps forward, Russia provokes with such attacks on the civilian population, after which again there is a convergence of views. We all agree in supporting the efforts of the United States, of the President of the United States, toward a just and lasting peace. We also know that with respect to the path necessary to arrive at a ceasefire, to open serious negotiations in Ukraine, we have had ample willingness so far on the part of Ukraine and zero willingness on the part of Russia. And so it is clear that the debate is mainly focused on what are the moves for. Let's say, so bring even Russia seriously to the negotiating table. Clearly the things to do are 2. On the one hand, continuing to support Ukraine has been a part of our discussion, and on the other hand, putting pressure on Russia, particularly with sanctions.
I would like to ask you what you think of the excuse you think of Chancellor Merz's statement about the necessity that he valued, let's say, an Israeli intervention on Iran. He valued it as something that is done for all of us, that serves all of us, goes into the dirty work that we all need, and doesn't go in the direction of, let's say, de-escalation.
No, we all go in the direction of de-escalation. I think what the German Chancellor also, in short, is I don't think I have to interpret the words of others. I simply believe that what the German Chancellor wanted to say is similar to what I told you now. We know there is a threat today and that you have to work to defuse that threat, after which of course we are all convinced that that threat has to be defused with negotiations. But I also told you that an attempt was made and unfortunately it did not come to fruition, and so it is possible that today the scenario changes. I think yes, I think that a different scenario is possible today, where we come to negotiations and we come to the goal that we all share, which is the renunciation by Iran to be a nuclear power. And I agree that Iran as a nuclear power would not only be a threat to Israel, it would be a threat to all of us as well. This, I think, is the meaning of the words.
From what you say, it seems to me that you agree with Macron when he says that it would be a mistake that would lead to chaos, the military option for regime change. I wanted to find out if that is the case, and then, if you agree with President Trump, who would like a mediator role in Iran. For Vladimir Putin.
Look, on the topic of the possibility of Putin mediating, frankly, let's say from the interlocutions these days, I don't think there was this, let's say, great willingness on anybody's part, if I have to be honest. After that, the way I see it, frankly, in short, entrusting a nation at war to mediate on another war would not seem to me to be really the best option to consider, but it's not. I have to tell you an option in the field. Here are also from the words I have personally heard in recent days. After that, in short, given the relationship Putin has with the Ayatollahs, if he wants to convince them to divest the nuclear program, unless he supports it, we are of course available. Here, from this point of view, after that, as far as Macron's words are concerned. Look, I always thought the best scenario was the oppressed Iranian people managing to, let's say, overthrowing the regime, after which of course you have to make bread with the flour that you have, i.e. you have to operate in the scenario in which you operate. So the goal is to prevent Iran from having, let's say, being a nuclear power. I repeat, with the negotiation until yesterday, you have not succeeded. Change the scenario is possible today, and we have to look at the goal. To what is our scenario? What is our perfect idea to achieve that goal? It is clear that as long as the threat exists, Israel also has the right to move to defend its security. No, a statement on Ukraine was not planned during the dinner yesterday with the president, even with President Trump. Prime Minister Carney shared with all the leaders what would be, let's say, the nose and taking notes, i.e. the main points of his report to the press on the discussion that there had been on Ukraine, which more or less traces what I have told you now, and we all agreed. I think the moment is a moment in which you can come to a ceasefire in Gaza. I shared this feeling of mine, let's say, with everyone, with all the people I talked to in these days, and with all the people who were at the summit, and I found convergence so much that this common position is in the final document of the G7. It means that we are all convinced that we have to push for this outcome. After that, as I read the Italian peace plan, what do I think should happen next if there is a ceasefire? You know that I have always supported the reconstruction plan presented by the Arab countries. I think the role of the Arab countries, particularly the Gulf countries in this phase, in the region, is a key role, and I think we have to as much as possible support the responsibility of these countries in helping us to find a solution on Gaza, so in case there is a ceasefire I would start from there.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.